Good afternoon, friends, and thank you very much for coming today. I have two announcements to make, and then, as usual, we will open up the floor for any questions that you have on any of the subjects. On my left is Joint Secretary East and South Africa, Mr. Ravi Bangar, who will also be available to respond to some of the questions on one of the announcements that I have to make. And I'll begin with that, and that is that the President of the Republic of Burundi, His Excellency Pierre Nkurunziza, will be visiting India on a state visit from September 17th to 19th. This is the first visit. This is the first state visit of the President of Burundi to India. Indeed, it's the first state visit at either from India to Burundi or from Burundi to India. Those of you who are following the number of state visits will perhaps note that this is the third state visit during the course of this month. We've already had two state visits earlier, that is from Tajikistan and Palestine, and this is the third state visit to India of a head of state during this month. The President will be accompanied by 4 other ministers. He is scheduled to meet Rashtrapati Ji on the 18th of September. He will also have delegation level talks with the Prime Minister and will have calls by various other dignitaries. During the visit, he will also be addressing the Chambers of Commerce at a meeting jointly organized by the SOCHM, CII and FICCI. Burundi is one of the smallest and most densely populated countries in Africa, and India's bilateral relations with Burundi have been on the upswing since 2009 when they opened a mission here. Also, this year earlier, Ms. Praneeth Kaur, the Minister of State for External Affairs, had visited Burundi. Burundi is also the location of 2 Pan-African initiatives that India has taken. The first is the India-Africa Institute for Educational Planning and Administration, which is being set up there. And the second is a vocational training center, which is being set up in Burundi. These are both Pan-African initiatives that we have taken following the India-Africa Forum summits. We hope that the visit would further develop our bilateral relations, and if you have any substantive questions on that, Mr. Bangar is available here to answer. But before that, I will move to another announcement, and then we will open the floor for questions. And that announcement is about the 4th Heads of Missions Conference to be held in New Delhi from 14th to 16th September. It will be inaugurated by the External Affairs Minister Shri S.M. Krishna, and the Prime Minister will also address the conference. The conference is designed to help provide an opportunity for our heads of mission in approximately 120 countries to interact with senior decision makers in India. It will also provide an opportunity for brainstorming on various issues that confront Indian foreign policy. I will quickly try and give you a sort of a brief understanding of what are the issues that the conference will be addressing. As you are aware, the External Affairs Minister has held 6 regional heads of mission conferences, and these are one in Singapore for the ASEAN, the second in Cairo for North Africa and West Asia, a third in Abu Dhabi for the Gulf states, a fourth in Madrid for all European states, fifth in the Shanghai for Central Asia, and a sixth in Havana for Latin America. So a lot of issues that came up there will feed into the discussions here. Bit of understanding. For example, issues like the Arab Spring and its implications, the challenge of the Eurozone crisis will be some of these issues. In addition, there will always be the perennials of Indian foreign policy, that is India and its neighbors, issues related to India's multilateral engagements, issues related to overseas Indians, consular matters. passports, etc. Also, new and emerging issues such as cybersecurity, public diplomacy, and also aspects of cultural diplomacy are on the agenda. The CII and FICCI are also making arrangements for separate interactions with visiting heads of mission. Apart from the External Affairs Minister and the Prime Minister who will address the meeting, we have several other ministers. These include the Home Minister, the Finance Minister, Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Minister of State for Environment, are among the National Security Advisor who will address the heads of mission. As is to be expected, this is a closed meeting, and unfortunately, we will not be able to invite you except for some opportunities. However, we will try and put out a gist of the issues that are covered so that you have a better understanding of what this conference is going to deal with. I think that is about what I have in terms of making announcements. I would suggest that if you have any questions first on the state visit, Mr. Bangar will address them, and then we will open the floor for any other questions that you may have. Yes, Rajiv, just hold on till the mic so that everything can be recorded.
Can you just fill us in on what is it on the table, the specific issues between India and Burundi? And also China has been there for quite some time. How are we placed there in Burundi vis-a-vis China?
Just 1 minute. We don't want to enter into comparisons, but he will certainly explain our position on this. As regards any other country's position, I think it's not proper and appropriate on our part to make that issue of our briefing. With that, I will hand it over to Ravi.
As far as India-Burundi relations are concerned, we have had fairly intensive engagement with them since the end of the genocide, which unfortunately took place there in the early 1990s, and following the Arusha Accord of 2003, and their engagement with India has been on the upswing. They decided to open the resident mission in India in 2009, which they did, and we have had a number of ministers from Burundi who have come on a visit to India. Burundi, which is rich in mineral resources, though it's small but rich in mineral resources, particularly platinum, uranium, and other precious metals too. So therefore, the engagement with Burundi, our strand mainly is to build the capacity of Burundi and to contribute in the infrastructure development in Burundi. And the two institutions which were earlier mentioned by Akbar is basically to bring a kind of a center from Burundi, with India's participation is implementation of India-Africa Forum Summit decisions. So in a nutshell, our engagement with Burundi is focused on capacity building, on socio-economic development of Burundi.
So there is again a custody row in New Jersey, and the Bengali couple have asked.
I will answer that question after we finish all questions related to Burundi. I am open for every other question. I think Manish would like a question on Burundi, yes. I am available at your disposal for that.
Mr. Bangar, what are we looking to Burundi for? I mean, what is our takeaway from this meeting, this engagement? And also, are we looking at some kind of cooperation in peacekeeping area? Is there some angle to the peacekeeping, larger multilateral issues?
Well, both Burundi and India, they contribute to the UN peace missions. Despite the genocide, despite the turmoil which was there, Burundi has troops to AMISOM to combat the menace of the civil war and the lack of governance in case of Somalia. Our basic objective is to forge a very close relationship with all countries in Africa. Burundi is important. Burundi was the chair of the East African Community last year, and they joined the East African Community in 2007. So Burundi is not just Burundi alone, but a group of 12 countries in East Africa, and their basic urge to integrate economically among themselves and as a bloc to seek closer ties with India. That is what is in our interest. That's what we are working at.
Just to add to your some supplementary information, some contributed to Sudan in Darfur and in Chad. This is a country of 10 million, and in Amazon, I think they contributed something like 2,000 soldiers. Yes, Ranji.
Since India has entered into nuclear cooperation agreement with other African countries, since they have uranium resources, is there any plan to have similar agreement with Burundi?
Not at the moment, because they have to first have a complete detailed survey done what their resources are. On platinum, definitely they are quite advanced, and they produce almost quite to 46,000 metric tons of platinum a year, which is quite significant. But other resources they haven't yet tapped.
Mr. Venkatarayan?
Ravi, can you give us an update on our efforts to provide connectivity, internet, telephone, hospitals and education to all the African states? How many countries have you been able to connect so far, and what is the situation? Thanks.
Sure. This is called Pan-Africa E-Network, which we commenced in 2008. It is with a budget of about Indian rupees 530 crores, roughly US dollar 135 million at that point of time. We have 40 countries who have signed on to this project, of which in 47 of these countries is established. The last country to join was earlier this year, and the remaining are keen to join this, and they are completing their procedural requirements on this. It's teleeducation, which you have mentioned, Venkat, and also the telemedicine has been useful, and here we are overcoming quite a number of challenges in terms of implementing the project. The time zones are very different. Then the language issue, but still the popularity of the courses through this, through the University of Delhi, IGNOU, Amity, private universities, hospitals like Apollo, like Netralia, they are equally very well established in terms of connectivity now, and increasingly we are finding that the language is not a major issue to overcome. I hope that I have answered your question.
Parul?
Will we be looking to source uranium from Burundi?
As I said earlier, it's too early for that.
Well, now the floor is open for any other question that you may like to ask. Yes, ma'am.
So there is another custody row in New Jersey, and the couple has asked for the help from the MEA. So what is the stand of MEA till the time?
Yes, I know you have been waiting for this question since yesterday, and I'm ready to answer that. I think on the 1st of September that the couple did approach our mission. Since then, we have been in touch with our mission. This is a consular issue, and we will in accordance with how we assess consular problems. We've advised them to seek a lawyer. My understanding is that they are already in touch with a lawyer. And when the next hearing takes place on the 14th, hopefully they will have a lawyer to represent them. We have also been in touch both with the State Department in New York, they have an office there, and the State Department's main office in Washington, and have written to them about the specific request. We have yesterday received a response from the New York office that since the matter is sub judice, we should await the outcome of that judicial process. We have accordingly advised them. We hope that this matter can be resolved at the earliest, and my understanding is that the court had, during its last hearing, indicated to them to provide information of a relative who could take custody of these children. Wait and see what the outcome of that would be at the next hearing. Yes, Dr. Akhilesh Suman.
It is about the HOM's conference. Is any leader of opposition is also going to address this conference?
No, as I don't think that has been the practice, because the idea is to hear about government policies on various issues. And therefore, neither has this been the practice previously, nor is it intended. Can you please speak into the mic?
The inaugural session will be open to the media, the head of mission. This conference.
I mentioned to you that this entire conference is a closed session, because the idea is to hear from decision makers directly for our Indian ambassadors. But we will try and see what we can put out in the public domain of this conference. But there is no open session or closed session. The entire conference is a closed session. It's for about, yes, 2.5 days. Yes, Vishal.
Sir, two questions. About an hour back, the U.S. Embassy in Yemen was also stormed by protesters. Now, after the developments in Libya and Egypt, how do you view the developments on the Arab Street? And two, there have been reports about declassified U.S. cable, which claims that the Haqqani network has been funded by sources in China. This is a declassified cable of 2011. And it says that Khalil Haqqani of the Haqqani network, he traveled to China to collect funds. How would you respond to it?
I'm afraid I haven't seen or heard of this cable, so I regret I can't respond to that. As regards the earlier issue that you raised, I mean, this is certainly some cause for concern that embassies are being attacked, our consulates are under siege, and we have issued a statement strongly condemning this in the instance of Benghazi. I have nothing further to add to that. Just a minute. Yes, 1 minute, we will get the mic.
Sir, are you aware of the Chinese funding to the Maoists and the Alphas of Northeast? Are you aware of the Chinese funding to the Alphas and the Maoist forces in India?
No, I'm not aware of. Is there a report which has come out that you're referring to recently?
Yes, that was given by the Home Ministry also. Agreed, accepted the Home Ministry.
Well, I think then you have got the answer to that. What is there that I have to add to that? Yes, next question, please. Yes, Shubhajit.
Sir, there is a report today that the External Affairs Minister has advised the Prime Minister not to take a visit to Pakistan. Is it correct?
Can you please?
The report that the External Affairs Minister has advised the Prime Minister not to visit Pakistan. Is it correct?
I must confess that such privileged information is never shared by the two who were privy to this. Certainly not to me, and I don't know who else is speculating on this matter. My understanding is that this is privileged conversation between the External Affairs Minister and the Prime Minister, and certainly I have no knowledge of it. I do not know if anybody else has any knowledge about it. Certainly it appears to be speculative. Yes, Mr. Venkatnarayan.
During Mr. Krishna's visit, certain categories of citizens, will receive visa on arrival at Wagah. If one is flying from Delhi to Lahore, it takes less than barely an hour. Why would anybody want to waste so much time driving to Wagah and going across? I mean, doesn't it make a lot more sense to provide visa on arrival at airports instead of a land route, Akbar?
Mr. Venkatnarayan, not everybody drives through. There are millions of people who don't drive. Also, there are many people who perhaps would find it cheaper to travel through the land route than by air. My point is that this is, as the External Affairs Minister said, a step-by-step approach. There is no finality to these things. This is the first step. Let the first step be implemented. Let's see how it is implemented, what are the outcomes, and then we move further. I mean, there are several suggestions in this. Some of your colleagues have also suggested that there is no separate category of journalists. And this has been raised with the External Affairs Minister because there were more than 60 journalists traveling with him. And he's mentioned that let us see how this works. If there are specific issues and specific problems which come about, we will certainly look into it and then discuss it with our Pakistani counterparts. Yes, sir.
What is the possibility of somebody getting a visa to travel to Lahore from India, or somebody from Lahore to travel to Chandni Chowk in case one doesn't have a relative in the country?
Well, now you have the tourist visas available for groups.
Just groups, not individuals as yet.
Pardon?
Not individuals.
Groups are always better than individuals, so that the group manager or the tourist company can arrange for together. You don't have to be relatives to go together in a group. You could go in a group for tourist purposes. So if you would like to visit the Lahore Fort or the Baj, there will be tour operators who will facilitate this. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, given to the movie, anti-Islam movie in the States, you have some special alert or for security here in India or not?
As far as we are concerned, the Home Minister has yesterday said that we have increased the security in front of all US missions and consulates in India. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us something about US Treasury Secretary's visit to India?
I am aware that is going to take place, but I will provide you the information in due course. I do not have further details because this is handled by our finance minister who will be his interlocutor. Geeta?
This is regarding the recent protests in Kudankulam over the Kudankulam power plant. Any word from Russia concerns over the protests?
No, nothing that we've heard of. Yes. Manish, last question, unless anybody else has. Okay, last two questions.
Forgive me for bringing China once again. The Chinese defense minister, when he came here, he apparently gave rupee 100,000 as tip to 2 pilots. And there were reports that the defense ministry officials recommended to the MEA to take it up with the Chinese authorities. Is there such, are you planning to take up the issue? What is the message behind it?
I'm not aware of
this. Is the money being returned to Chinese embassy?
You should ask the Ministry of Defense about it, who received that, not the Ministry of External Affairs. Yes, Naz, last question.
The defense minister is going to visit Maldives. In that context, could you give something about it?
It's the defense minister who's going to go there, please. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.